Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a dramatic and fast-moving development in the war between Ukraine and Russia. The headline says it all. Ukraine just did to Russia in hours what Europe failed to do for years. That's a bold claim, but when we break it down, you'll understand why so many analysts are using language like that. For years, European leaders tried to pressure Moscow through diplomacy, sanctions, negotiations, and political isolation. After Russia's actions in Ukraine back in 2014, especially the annexation of Crimea, the European Union rolled out waves of sanctions. These were designed to weaken Russia's economy and deter further aggression. The sanctions targeted banks, energy companies, defense industries, and individuals close to the Kremlin. Countries like Germany and France pushed for diplomatic solutions through frameworks such as the Minsk agreements. The idea was simple: contain the conflict and avoid a larger war. But over time, it became clear that economic pressure alone was not changing the Kremlin's long-term strategic goals. Russia adapted. It built financial buffers, strengthened ties with non-Western partners, and adjusted its economy to survive under sanctions. Then came 2022. Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Europe responded with even tougher sanctions. Russian assets were frozen, energy imports were cut, military aid began flowing to Kyiv. Yet, despite all this, Russia continued its military campaign. So what changed? What happened in just hours that reshaped the battlefield in a way years of European policy could not? The answer lies in Ukraine's evolving strategy and its growing capability to strike deep, fast, and unexpectedly. In a series of coordinated operations, Ukrainian forces demonstrated that they could disrupt Russian logistics, command structures, and critical military infrastructure at remarkable speed. Instead of slow economic attrition, Ukraine delivered immediate battlefield consequences. One of the key differences is tempo. Sanctions work over months and years. Battlefield actions work in minutes and hours. When Ukrainian forces target ammunition depots, fuel storage sites, or critical bridges, the effects are instant. Supply chains collapse, frontline units run short on resources, commanders scramble to respond. The psychological effect is just as important. For years, the narrative from Moscow emphasized strength, resilience, and inevitability. But rapid, high-impact Ukrainian operations undermine that image. They show vulnerability. And perception matters in war. When Ukraine carries out precision strikes deep behind Russian lines, it sends multiple messages at once. To Russian troops, it signals that nowhere is truly safe. To the Russian public, it challenges official narratives of control. To international partners, it demonstrates capability and determination. One of the most significant shifts has been Ukraine's use of modern technology. Drones, for example, have transformed the battlefield. Low-cost, unmanned systems have allowed Ukrainian forces to conduct reconnaissance, target artillery, and strike high-value assets with incredible precision. In many cases, a relatively inexpensive drone can destroy equipment worth millions of dollars. That kind of asymmetry changes everything. Europe's aims limited Russia's ability to produce advanced weapons, but Ukraine's tactical innovation, in many cases, has neutralized expensive systems with creative solutions. It's not just about hardware, it's about adaptability. Ukraine has shown a remarkable ability to integrate Western-supplied equipment into its operations quickly. From advanced air defense systems to precision-guided munitions, Ukrainian forces have learned fast, and when an opportunity appears, they act quickly. In some of the most dramatic moments, Ukrainian operations have unfolded in the matter of hours. Coordinated strikes hit multiple targets almost simultaneously. Communication hubs go down, ammunition depots explode, transportation routes are severed. The result is chaos within Russian operational planning. That kind of disruption is something sanctions simply cannot replicate. Economic pressure can reduce a country's long-term capacity, but it doesn't immediately halt a tank column or ground an aircraft. Ukraine's approach focuses on immediate battlefield effects. Another key factor is intelligence. Ukraine has leveraged real-time intelligence, often with the help of Western partners, to identify high-value targets, which allows for surgical strikes that maximize impact while conserving limited resources. It's a different kind of warfare compared to the large-scale mechanized battles of the past. Instead of relying purely on mass, Ukraine emphasizes precision and timing. In several high-profile operations, Ukrainian forces demonstrated that they could penetrate Russian defenses and hit critical infrastructure far from the front lines. These actions force Russia to divert resources. Air defense systems must be relocated, troops must be reassigned to protect rear areas, supply chains must be rerouted. Every defensive adjustment weakens offensive momentum. That's the strategic effect Ukraine achieved in hours. Europe's efforts were designed to constrain Russia over time. Ukraine's operations, by contrast, create immediate tactical and operational consequences. There's also a morale dimension. For Ukrainian citizens, rapid successes boost confidence and unity. In a prolonged conflict, morale is crucial. For Russian forces, unexpected strikes can sow doubt. When supply depots explode or air bases are targeted, it disrupts not only logistics but also confidence, and confidence is a powerful force multiplier. Another important aspect is narrative control. Modern conflicts are fought not only on the ground but also in the information space. When Ukraine carries out a dramatic operation, it shapes global headlines. That influences political debates in Europe and beyond. Suddenly, discussions shift from fatigue and stalemate to capability and resilience. It re-energizes support. For European governments, this can make it easier to justify continued assistance. Demonstrated effectiveness strengthens the case that aid is making a difference. So in a sense, Ukraine's rapid actions can achieve politically what years of diplomatic statements struggled to accomplish. They show momentum. Momentum changes conversations. Momentum changes calculations. And momentum can change history. We also have to consider the symbolic dimension. When a smaller nation facing a larger military power executes precise, high-impact operations, it challenges assumptions about military hierarchy. It demonstrates that innovation can offset numerical disadvantage. That message resonates far beyond the immediate battlefield. It speaks to other nations observing the conflict. It also speaks to alliances. Europe's challenge has always been balancing deterrence with escalation risk. Sanctions were a way to respond without direct military confrontation. Ukraine, defending its own territory, operates under a different logic. It must act decisively to survive. In that context, speed becomes a weapon. When Ukraine conducts a coordinated strike in hours, it compresses decision cycles. Russian commanders must react quickly, often without complete information. Rapid decision-making under pressure increases the risk of mistakes. Mistakes in war are costly. By forcing Russia into reactive mode, Ukraine seizes initiative. Initiative is one of the most valuable assets in conflict. Whoever controls the tempo often controls the outcome. Another point to consider is cost-effectiveness. Years of sanctions imposed significant economic strain on Russia, but they also had indirect costs for Europe, particularly in energy markets. Ukraine's targeted operations, while risky, can deliver disproportionate returns in military terms. Destroying a critical bridge or fuel depot can have ripple effects across entire sectors of the front. It forces expensive repairs, redeployments, and defensive measures. This dynamic reveals a shift from attrition through economics to disruption through precision, and that shift is what people mean when they say Ukraine did in hours what Europe could not do in years. It's not that sanctions were meaningless. They constrained Russia's economic options and limited access to certain technologies. But sanctions are blunt instruments. Battlefield operations are sharp tools. In modern warfare, sharp tools can reshape realities quickly. There's also the question of adaptation on the Russian side. Each successful Ukrainian operation forces Moscow to rethink strategy. More resources must go into air defense. More emphasis must be placed on protecting infrastructure. This creates trade-offs. Resources allocated to defense cannot be used for offense. Over time, this can slow operational advances, and that slowdown can create opportunities for Ukraine. Another dimension is international perception. When Ukraine demonstrates capability, it strengthens its diplomatic position. Countries considering further support see tangible results. That can translate into additional aid packages, advanced systems, and deeper cooperation. In this way, a successful operation lasting hours can have strategic ripple effects lasting months. It can influence budgets, elections, and policy debates across Europe. In contrast, sanctions often fade into the background of political discourse. They become routine, but dramatic operations capture attention. Attention shapes policy.
We should also recognize the human element. Behind every operation are planners, engineers, pilots, and soldiers. The ability to coordinate complex actions under pressure reflects institutional learning. Ukraine's military has evolved rapidly since 2014. Training, restructuring, and battlefield experience have built a force capable of executing sophisticated operations. That evolution itself is part of the story. Years ago, few would have predicted that Ukraine could conduct deep strikes that disrupt major military infrastructure so effectively. Yet, here we are. The broader lesson might be about the nature of modern power. Power is no longer measured solely in numbers of tanks or aircraft. It's measured in speed of adaptation, integration of technology, and quality of decision-making. In that sense, Ukraine's rapid actions represent a shift in how smaller states can challenge larger adversaries. They show that agility can counter mass. They show that innovation can offset scale. And they show that decisive action, even in hours, can shift the strategic narrative. Of course, it's important to remain realistic.